If you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact, and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Christine Campbell-Rappin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers that convert consistently. We'll see you all on the inside. Welcome back, everybody. You know that I am all about standing out from the sea of sameness, getting in front of that ideal buyer and doing it in a way that's both creative and elegant. And that's why I'm so excited to introduce you our guest today, who I met, guess what? Networking. And she said something. She was the speaker of the day and said something that sparked my curiosity. And I thought, I love this idea. I want to bring it to my audience. So please give a very warm welcome to Jennifer Faye Colombo. She is going to introduce you to something that is really, really interesting. Welcome to the show today, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you and your audience and share this.
I know this is going to be a lot of fun. So I want to talk about, first and foremost, how on earth did you discover this? And then how on earth did you lead to the place that said, I'm going to build an entire business around this whole strategy?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And basically what I do is I am an artist and designer, and I create journals and card decks for myself as well as for my clients. And I had already been a user of the tool of journals and card decks for a very long time. And many years ago, I was like, it'd be really fun to create one, not having any idea how to do one. And somebody suggested a few years ago, I have this idea. Will you be the illustrator? And I said yes. And after turning down a publishing deal to self-publish, I learned all of the ropes and tied in my background as not only a fine artist, but as a theatrical scenery designer and being able to work with printers and vendors to be able to actually create these products, not only for myself. I had so much fun doing it. And I was like, these would be really cool to create for other people as tools to share with their clients, whether they're working, giving them or selling them or both, for their one-on-one clients, for retreat participants, workshop participants. And I think one of your favorites is a lead magnet. It's a different way to have a lead magnet.
Absolutely. And this is an interesting place because lead magnets, for anybody who's not familiar with the term, lead magnets are a tool to bring forward from a crowd your ideal person who wants to have an engagement. And to know that your lead magnet is effective, it simply comes down to, did they take a step towards you? And the more steps that we can take is the movement that builds the momentum that leads to you being able to identify a potential buyer. And that's where all the magic happens, my friends. You've heard me talk about that before. But this is a really interesting way that most of us thought, I don't think I'm big enough to do that. So let's talk about, first off, the benefits. You can create this today and you can work with Jennifer to do that. But what are the key benefits of a lead magnet that is so unique, a card deck or a journal that reflects your brand, your style, your quotes, the way you see the world? Why does this really identify a buyer?
Yeah, so to me, a lot of people are very familiar with these tools, right? They're all over the place now, journals, card decks, whatever it is. But this is a way to, instead of using something stock and off the shelf, this is a way to actually have your words of wisdom in your clients' hands, or then potential clients, depending on how you're using it. And I think that that's really cool. It's a very amazing way to not only showcase your business, but allow people to literally have you in their hands at all times. Perhaps they are having a tough day and need a reminder of something or an affirmation. Perhaps they are stuck on something and they want to go grab your journal or your card deck and work with some questions to actually have a transformation and move through something. And to me, that's really powerful, that you can be of service and of help without always having to be on the phone with a client or be in a session with a client.
One of the reasons why I love this so much, and part of this is because my favorite thing to receive, and so yes, this is me showing up, doing my business in the way that I want to, is that I love a journal. I do. I've learned in recent years to love pulling cards. And this is the thing that I keep. And when I have bought gifts in the world of corporate, what has really been interesting is that I have always said, let's get a journal. Let's get a piece of something that stays more than a nanosecond. Like most
Mhm.
lead magnets are PDFs, tools, and I would honestly cast some shade here and say they're throwaway tools. They are band-aids instead of the open heart surgery, but this is a real experiential
Mhm.
way to deliver short-term impact and a long-term legacy in the eyes of not only your current client, your past client, and I love what you also said, which is your potential client. So let's talk about ways you might guide, because you're both creating them in the business that you
Mhm.
have, but you're also guiding people to how do you use these? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my biggest thing is I tell people this is about creating what's aligned to your business. So card decks and journals can be so many different things, and we can have an entire hour long conversation around what they can be. But the biggest thing is to make sure it's aligned to you. So you're not going to go just grab stock stuff or say, oh, you know what, I'm just going to do an affirmation deck because this is what I think it's supposed to be. No, you're going to bring your wisdom to the table. And that's the first thing that I work with people on. I say that you probably heard me in this presentation say something along the lines of you are the oracle, you are the wisdom. As business owners, we are constantly creating, we are constantly sharing our knowledge and our wisdom with our clients, with those on the social media platforms, in our newsletters. You most likely already have what you need to create a deck or a journal already available to you. So I love that because this we like to work smarter and not harder, right? And this is about repurposing, and then you fill in the gaps. So it's about starting to go and think about, what do I say on repeat? What questions do people bring to me? How am I helping people? And starting to just observe what you're doing naturally all day long already. And what's really cool about this is that when I work with clients on this, it gives them this different pulled back eagle eye perspective of their business. Because when you're in it, you may not actually realize all of the zone of genius that you're sharing all of the time. And when you go to actually pull from stuff you already have, as well as adding things and filling in the gaps, which I help people like determine, like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. I give them ideas. This is a really cool way to see your business in a different light too, not only creating something for your clients and potential clients, but also giving you this really cool perspective.
I love that you say you have most of the content you would need to start, even without really
Mhm.
spending a ton of time on this. And I can tell you this is true because many of you who've been in my podcast or been fans of the show for a long time will know that I say business growth is elegantly simple all the time.
Mhm.
That isn't something I was aware of until my coach sent me this gift and
Mhm.
said, you say this all the time. It's part of your brand identity, and you need something in the back of your space when you're on camera that reaffirms and states so that people are like, that's who Christine is. And
Mhm.
that goes back to what I do when I'm working with clients, which is that very simple 4 strategy questions. Who are you? What do you stand for? How do you want to win? What's going to be the difference that makes you stand out, and what are the capabilities you need? And if you can build in some of those
Mhm.
echoes, they carry so much weight and it helps make you memorable. And that's the key piece of this. And when you are thinking about what to write,
Mhm.
think about, I was thinking after you and I had met a couple weeks ago, was there are things I would say that are the reminders that you need in the voice of your head to
Mhm.
reach a client growth engine. So business is simple. What are you doing to simplify it today? You have 2 things that predict your revenue. So one of the cards could be, what is the first thing you're doing today to get in front of more audiences of buyers? Another piece of that puzzle will be, how many offers, go count how many offers you've made this week and make a course correction. And I'm thinking about all those things, but I'm also then reminding people this is a way to anchor and
Mhm.
live the pieces of the foundation that lead them successfully in an experience to the result. And remember, peeps, it isn't the knowledge just that you hold that's valued to your buyer.
Mhm.
It's the experience of the knowledge and the application. And that's why I love the fact that, card decks can be digital, but you're also advocating that even a small business can use these as a physical resource. Let's talk a little bit about that, because when you said what it was possible of, it sort of blew my mind, because I'm thinking I don't have necessarily in my mind the priority to go spend a ton of money on an asset I don't yet know how to use.
Mhm.
But you said that this is more accessible as a physical product than we think. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So before I answer that question, I just want to like touch on a little bit of something
Mhm.
you said about when your coach sent you that beautiful artwork that's
Yeah.
behind you with your saying. If this is something you're using to gift people versus the selling, and they may or may not know it's coming, like you're talking about experience, right? Who doesn't love getting actual real physical mail
Yes.
in the mail? Like we don't really get that anymore. So this just adds that layer of experience to it as well. So I just had to like note that because you touched on that so beautifully.
Well, and not
Um,
only do I have this in the artwork, I actually have physical cards that I can send as thank you notes.
which is beautiful.
All
Yes,
tying in together, peeps. This is how
yes,
the brand theme comes to life,
yeah,
right?
all tying together. And so to answer your question about the accessibility, nowadays, because print on demand has gotten so much better, it is actually accessible for people to do this. Journals are super easy. You either put them up on Amazon, or I have other printers that you can use if you don't want to actually sell it. Same with the card decks. And if you don't want to order like 500 card decks, because who wants to keep that in stock, right? We're not a big publishing house. And if you're a small business, this is probably not really your focus, but you have the ability now to order very small quantities. Or if you don't ever want to touch anything, there's certain vendors that you can put it up on their website. People can click and buy. They print it, they send it. You get a piece of the pie, and they get a piece of the pie, which is really amazing. So again, that goes back to the alignment. Not only aligned to your business and your message and like how you want to share yourself with clients and the work that you do, but it also goes back to alignment of what's going to actually work for my life and my business, because that's
Mhm.
important. Like nobody needs to add tons of extra stuff to their plate. I personally, one of my decks, I choose to purchase it and like ship it out myself because that's fun for me and I like doing that. My journals are click and buy, right? So there's all of these different options that are available to make it what is the easiest for you.
Yeah, I love this. And I honestly do love that you say, you don't have to make this big investment saying, what will I do with it? Because if you buy 500 or something and throw it in the box, trust me, the thing you're going to do most is forget it's even there. And
Mhm,
versus, if you write this into your client experience, into your
mhm,
prospecting tools, and you have a discipline about it, one of the most fundamental ways I stood out early in my career in the world of corporate was when I have a mother who's a Millie Post, first off, and she has always been about you do not get to enjoy your gift until you write a handwritten card.
mhm,
And I was brought up that way. I was brought up old school. So when I was moving into the world of corporate, I always carried physical thank you cards in my backpack. And before I left to go home to where I was coming from, because I've traveled a lot in my career, I always wrote the cards and dropped them in the mailbox before I got on the plane. And I will tell you, to this day, clients emulate that. I do that in my business still today. And I get cards from people who talk about the impact and that ability to elevate yourself with
mhm,
really simple things can be such a breakthrough. And one of my clients, just want to share one more story. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were brainstorming. How do you engage with your audience? And
mhm,
she's not somebody who wants to pick up the phone. She doesn't even like emailing them a heck of a lot. And I'm like, how about you send thank you letters with your
mhm,
product? Because she's selling something that is going in a physical product to the end customer. And she's like, I love that. And I said, think about the paper, think about the texture, think about the product, the experience. And she's like, I am all over this. I can't wait to go build this on. In this case, she built, I think, probably through Vistaprint, but that's a video, or a service that's on demand. You can pick small quantities. And this is not as expensive as you think, because if you think about the cost per lead, and we're talking about identifying a buyer, they are climbing. And even in the digital space, it's easy to be $10 to $15 a lead. If you're not aware of that, you need a budget if you're going to go do ads. And I always say, get the message right, know who the buyer is, get this proof of concept, and then go to town. But you're in the same ballpark with
Yes.
this is, right? So this is, do you want to do digital where you have no control, or do you want to pick and choose those that you could really make an impact? I think one's a bigger accelerator. How about you?
I think so too, because again, it goes back to that experiential thing and that relationship building thing. Whereas, a PDF somebody might forget about, but if they have a card deck or a journal sitting on their desk or someplace in their home, like they're not going to, well, ideally, they're not going to forget to use it. It's going to be, at least it's going to be significantly harder. And speaking of experiences too, this is something too, that if you have a card deck, and depending on like what somebody's choosing to use, these can be really fun things to bring to networking meetings that are in person. They could be fun to bring to speaker events. They can be an experiential thing where you have these beautiful messages on these cards and you're out with a bunch of people and you're like, oh, let's all like pick a card and like share the message that you received for the day. It's really pulling in a rememberable experience.
I love that, because honestly, we spend so much time, and I watch this all the time. I watch this in my peer group, building tools, writing books, writing articles, doing all the things that help you build authority, all really important. But if you do not use them in the marketing, boy, my friends, are you missing the boat? And so what I love is this is not just the imagination, because I'm sure you're thinking, oh, I could do that. Now I want you to do, how will I use it effectively? So are there any kind of tips you think about? So we know how to start. I think we've captured imagination, but how do we work smarter and not harder? And how do we know when we have, this is going to be the big question, enough to say, let's go to print, or let's go work with a designer to beautify it?
Yeah, so this is such a great question. So my biggest tip to people is to just start brain dumping. And here's the key. You're going to start brain dumping. You're not going to start editing to the end product yet, right? You're just going to use this as the bucket that you're going to go to. And that's a place where you can also grab from old blogs, old newsletters, your old social media posts. It could be from courses if you are a course creator and you have courses. So you're going to start there. Now, some people come to me already with an idea in hand and they're kind of ready to go. And that's amazing. And there are some people who come to me and they need to chat with me because they actually need me to open up the possibilities that are available to them. So don't get stuck on all of the fine details. Those come later. It's starting with your wisdom and getting that down. And then eventually you're going to edit. And then you bring in a designer, or maybe you have the ability to design yourself, whatever it is. But then the design part comes, where design and words come together. And then, the printing process. Most people that are listening to this probably want to bring in somebody that's going to actually make the print ready files and go to the printer and recommend vendors, which is something that I do with my clients, because that's not your area of expertise. So don't get caught up in all of that stuff. Everything is figure outable. And if you need to bring in an expert and a designer, whoever, then you can bring those people in. Ideally, I say to people, like, this should be fun too. Like, this shouldn't be something that is super tedious. It can be a really beautiful, fun experience. And I love to actually co-create with people. So like, we do really work together on the whole thing. Even though I'm not an editor, because I've done this enough and because I am a user of the products as well as a developer, we bounce ideas around. It works as a really beautiful co-creation by the end. And then you get this really cool thing in hand that you get to give your clients, that you get to sell to people.
So I'm going to say, just hear what she said. She was not as she was not as clear as I'm going to be crystal clear with you. I want you to fall in love with the idea, but I want you
Yeah.
to go execute it, and I don't want you to get lost in the weeds of the technical. This is something that you want to, unless you were seeing, I want to do this as a business,
Mhm.
then outsource the technical side and the areas where you're not strong. Because the reason you do this, I want you to be so focused on my role of this is to attract my next buyer. My
Mhm.
role of this is to market and use the tool. That's where you stay in the strategy, and everything else you're going to use a resource. And particularly, I would recommend working with Jennifer Faye and say, this is how we're going to do it and make it reality. So I always ask all of my guests, Jennifer, because I believe everybody is different in how they go to market, how they find their buyers, how they win, how they get the yes. What's
Mhm.
working in your business right now?
I mean, for me, it's all about relationships and making connections. That's my biggest thing. I like connecting with people on all different levels and sharing our passions. So that's my biggest one. And just to go back just a tiny bit, because I think this ties into this too. Intention. I forgot to say that. Like you covered it, but why you want to create this thing is needs to be clear, and it is your intention about why this is important to you, why this is going to be beneficial to your clients and your business and all of those things. And that's my intention when I'm connecting and networking too, right?
I love that because, guys, this is a people business. And if you're like me, I'm sure you are, if you're listening to Amplify Your Marketing Message, you want to serve at a very high level. You want to attract buyers who are ready to take action today. This will separate you from the crowd. And it is about the relationships, it is about a co creation, and it is about how will I use this to move people and build momentum. Jennifer, thank you for being our guest today. How do people find you?
You can find me at my website, which I'm sure she's going to drop, but it's
Well,
jencolombo.com. And when you get there, you can get on my newsletter. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook and see what I'm up to.
guys, definitely go connect to Jennifer. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I think it's a great way to build a lead magnet that not only helps you stand out, it can really enhance the client experience. Thank you for being our guest today, everyone. We will see you on our next episode. That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell-Rappin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrappin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message. We'll see you all on our next episode.